you, Harold. I am Chuck C. from Laguna B, and I am an alcoholic. Hi. This is a fine spot to put a guy in, really. I feel like a batter getting up to bat after the game's been won already. As a matter of fact, I was ready to go home before I got to the hotel. Tommy and Joe and this guy came out to the airport and picked us up. And I didn't even know they were going to be here. And by the time we got to the hotel, I'd had my meeting and was ready to go back home. And the last couple of days have just added to it. Funny part of this deal, Harold here wasn't even on the program. He's not supposed to be doing anything, and he done stole the show this morning in there at breakfast. That's the way it is in this society, Lois. But I'm mighty glad to be here. I'm always glad to be in an AA meeting. And I think that I would be remiss if I didn't first thank your committee for allowing me the privilege to share this convention with you, both myself and my good wife. You need me just about as bad as you need another Pike's Peak. I've had it, and so have you. But I thank you for letting us come over. And I want to thank you all for coming. I wouldn't have blamed any of you for going on home. I don't know how much we can stand, really. But I've been full ever since Tom got through Friday night. What a talk. The wonderful part of this convention to me is this, that I had heard practically everybody that's talked here on several occasions over the years. And yet, with each one of them, it was a brand new experience. It was just as I'd never heard Tommy before in my life. Same with Joe, and the same with Jack down here, and the same with Harold. Susie, I don't think I'd heard. I don't know. But I'm sure glad I did. What a deal this has been. Even my wife was pretty good. Took me a long time to teach her that stuff, you know. I know she did me proud. There's an old boy up here from Austin, Texas, from the Suburban Club. They got a guy down there that's been a little sick, CC. He came all the way up here to get a tape to carry on back there. Well, I just wondered how come, because he could have just sent some money up here. They didn't send him more. But that's the way to do these things down in Texas, you know. They do everything big. Send a man up here to tape it for him. Isn't that wonderful? That put near took the place away from you up here, too. Almost as many Texans in the crowd as there are Coloradans. And that's one of the wonderful things about us in Alcoholics Anonymous. We have a big disease. Wouldn't it be awful if a bunch of drunks had a little bitty old disease like whooping cough or German measles? But that's not the way it is. We got one of the top diseases. Medical science says alcoholism is the third worst killer in the country. Topped only by heart and cancer. Second only to one of our social diseases is a cause for permanent insanity. And medically speaking, it's incurable. Now that's pretty rough. And that's what I got. I'm an alcoholic. Now, many doctors throughout this country and Canada give us their private opinion that if the brain explosions and heart failures that should be accredited to alcoholism were, right now, alcoholism would be first as a killer in the United States. I don't think that's too important. We're in the first three anyhow. You know. We get show money, even at the worst. And I think it's very significant because we would have to have one of the worst diseases. See, everything's got to be big in an alcoholic's life. Before I got to AA, I was always going to do something big. I never quite got around to it. But I was going to. One of my great dreams when I was lying back there in that bed of mine in an alcoholic stupor was the big things I was going to do to get back in the good graces of my family and society. I remember one of them that recurred often. I was going to save the Pope in an earthquake. Now, I'm not even a Catholic, and I doubt if you'd let me save him anyway. But that was going to take some doing because I'm drunk at Beverly Hills and he's over in Rome, see? But it's very necessary for us to do something big because we never did the little things. You see, we never did the little things. And this is one of the wonderful things about our program. There's nothing big to do anymore. They're just little things, and the big things take care of themselves. And it's wonderful. And when we, as alcoholics, come to see the nature of our problem and fulfill the conditions laid down in our program, something happens to us. But I'm one who believes that either we have to drink the last dregs out of the bottom of the cup, or we have to come and see the nature of our program, lest we will not fulfill the conditions for sobriety. We are a peculiar breed of cats, we alkies. We have the ability to hear what we want to hear and see what we want to see, and interpret both that which we hear and see the way we want to interpret. And we can't hear until we can. I got a great charge out of a little thing that happened on Art Linkletter's program some time back. He had a bunch of kids up there talking to him. And he asked them about the definition, their definition of a miracle. And he got to this little old knot-headed boy, and he says, "What's your definition of a miracle?" And he says, "A miracle is something that can't happen until it does." And that's the way with us. The miracle of AA can't happen with us until it does. Now, I've heard several people say since I've been here, I wish I could have found this thing 10 years sooner, or 20 years sooner or something. And I just laugh. I just laugh because we couldn't have found it 10 years sooner. We couldn't have found it 10 days sooner. You know, an alcoholic just don't make up his mind that he's got a problem and decide to come to Alcoholics Anonymous and surrender and get sober. There's a little preparation to go through. We got to get ready. And how long it takes, and what it takes. And until we can hear, we can't hear. Now, I agree with the medical definition of the disease of alcoholism, that it is a disease of a twofold nature. An allergy of the body coupled with an obsession of the mind. I go along with this. I am condemned by the obsessions of the mind to drink liquor. And I am condemned by the allergy of the body to die if I do. I know this because I spent 10 hot years in hell trying to prove that wasn't true. And I proved to my complete and total satisfaction that it is. So I agree. I also agree that once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. Medical science says that there's never been a case in history where anybody like me ever went back to normal drinking. I agree with this. Once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. I agree that the physical part of the disease gets worse with the passage of time, even during long extended periods of total abstinence. I know that I'm 18 years and 7 months worse off so far as successfully drinking liquor is concerned than I was when I got here. And just between us, I wasn't in what would be diagnosed as robust health when I got here. I know this is true, and I don't have to take a drink to prove it, because I have been close to and active in this program for 18 years and 7 months. And when you're close to and active in, you don't have to take the drink to see if the physical part of the disease gets worse, because your friends are forever doing it for you. You know? I had a twin in this program almost. Chap that came to the program the same month I did, January 1946. And for 15 straight years, he did a tremendous job in this program. He was one of the greatest speakers that ever came out of Southern California. Many of you have heard him or heard his tapes. 2 years ago, last Christmas, he got messing around with a little cough syrup, codeine and alcohol. And the next thing you know, he was drinking a little, and the next thing you knew, we had to bury him. He didn't last 60 days after his first drink, after 15 straight years of total abstinence. So, you see, the physical side of the disease gets worse with the passage of time, even during long, extended periods of total abstinence. And to date, there is nothing that can be done about the physical part of the disease. If we had all the money in the state of Colorado, it wouldn't be enough to send me someplace to have my body made over so I could successfully drink. All of this I am fully aware of. Now, if seeing the physical side of the disease, you and I could decide to quit drinking and could do it, we wouldn't have a problem. We simply wouldn't have a problem. It's easy for us to see the physical side of the disease, that one drink's too many and 1,000's not enough, after it's explained to us. Now, this never occurred to me until I got to Alcoholics Anonymous. I never thought it was the first drink that was killing me. I thought it was the last gallon. For 10 years, I was trying to find a way to shut it off before the trouble started. You see, my last drink, my trouble started on Wednesday. Now, if I'd just quit Tuesday, everything had been all right. And so I'd decided to quit Tuesday next time, but I'd forget to specify which Tuesday. But when I got here and you told me it was the first slug, I could see it very plainly. It's not that we alkies get drunk every time we take a drink. Particularly, this is not true with the periodic. We don't get drunk every time we take a drink. We get real cute about this thing. We come off drunk, and if you're like me and didn't know there was an easy way to sober up, you just died until you could live. Shook your liver out, walked up and down the living room floor, sweating, shaking, freezing, and dying until you could get well. And then you'd go into a real good build-up process. You'd eat a lot of vitamins, sleep well, drink a lot of milk, exercise, get real strong, and then you'd start to analyze. You take that last drunk apart, see where you made your mistakes, decide not to do it that way anymore, and then you start sampling. And you sample your way right on back to bed, you see? But not quickly. Take quite a little time, because we got real cute about it. We'd experiment for a few weeks. So it isn't that we get drunk every time we take a drink. It's that we get drunk every time we take a drink before we quit taking a drink. You see? Always. It's this question of time between the first slug and the drunk. And if seeing this we could decide to quit drinking and quit, we wouldn't have a problem in the world. We just say to ourselves, all right, the stuff isn't doing for me what it used to do. I can't get there anymore. I can get close, but I either go through or fall back. And so I'm not getting any fun out of it. There's nothing in it but trouble. And besides, it's getting so it hurts too bad to sober up. So I'll just cork up the bottle and put it on the shelf and leave it. Now, if we could do that, we wouldn't have a problem in the world. We'd do it. But we can't. Why? Because of the other half of the disease, the obsessions of the mind that cause us to drink. The obsessions of the mind that cause us to drink. The reason you never hear anything about willpower or backbone or standing up and being a man in Alcoholics Anonymous is that we know it's just as silly for an alkie to decide to quit drinking as it is for a tubercular to decide to quit coughing. The only way a tubercular can get rid of the cough is to get rid of its cause, tuberculosis. And the only way a guy like me can get rid of the bottle is to get rid of the mental obsessions that cause him to drink. You see, there is no physical demand for liquor when the body is dry. If there was, I'd be in the middle of a bad predicament this morning, because I haven't had a drink or a tranquilizing or sedating pill for 18 years and 7 months. So I would really be hurt. But I'm not. I feel pretty good, thank you. There is no physical demand for liquor when the body's dry. It's only after the first slug that the physical takes over. The first drink is mental. The second drink and the 542nd drink are physical, but the first one is mental. And if you and I want to live without that bottle, we have to be rid of its cause, the obsessions of the mind. And that's what our program is all about. We recognize the physical part of the disease and recognize that we have no more good drinking time left, period, and never will have any more, period. And then turn to the other half of the disease, the cause. And this is what our program relieves us of, the obsessions of the mind. Now, due to our very nature, we either have to come to see that there's nothing ahead of us but permanent insanity or death, or we have to drink the last dregs out of the bottom of the cup. because otherwise we will not do the things necessary to obtain and maintain sobriety. We won't do it. Because the first condition for sobriety is surrender. This is the very first condition for sobriety. This is a battle we win by the recognition that we can't win, by the admission to ourselves of total defeat, and the abandonment of self to the simple program. And we will not do it unless we see that it's absolutely necessary or that it is absolutely necessary. How are we going to get rid of the obsessions of the mind? We have a formula that is foolproof. And all we got to do is fulfill the conditions of the formula. And the first condition is that we accept ourselves as we are, where we are. This is the first condition. We find it in chapter 3. It says we learned that we had to fully concede to our innermost selves that we were alcoholics. This is the first step in recovery. Now that's why these meetings are so very necessary. Because before we can identify with both halves of the disease of alcoholism, we have to identify with an alcoholic. This is our first identity, with somebody like us. And the place to find somebody like us is in an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting. And that's why these meetings are so necessary and so vital to us, if we be alcoholics. That we might be able to accept ourselves exactly as we are, where we are. Till I completely and totally ran out of everything, including choice, it was never my fault that I drank. It was your fault. If you stupid people had have lived like I knew you should, and like I told you how, because I knew how you should live, and I told you. And if you just had performed like I thought you ought to, I wouldn't have had to drink. But you wouldn't do it, and so I got drunk at you. And I got drunk at a lot of you, believe me. That gal that you heard talking some of you yesterday afternoon, I used to get drunk at her an awful lot because she didn't perform like I knew she should. My boss, it was perfectly clear to me that I had all the brains in the organization. And he had all the money and was trying to tell me what to do. I got drunk at him. But my last and best excuse was my wife's mother. There was a king-size excuse, believe me. We had a mutual hating society that was beautiful to behold. You see, she only had one kid. And I was married to her. And she was living with us. And she had a grandstand seat watching me crucify her only daughter. And she didn't like me very good. And I didn't like her that good. You see, if she hadn't have been there, I wouldn't have had to crucify her daughter. It was never my fault until I ran out of time. And from the day that I came to see that if there be fault, it is mine, from that moment until right now, I have never had to take a drink of liquor or a sedating or tranquilizing pill. And it happened to me in the middle of the worst drunk that I'd ever been on. And I had nothing in my body but liquor. Nothing. But I woke up with a little period of sanity, and I saw me as I was, and accepted me as I was. And although I had a lot of dying to do after that, I haven't had any more drinking to do, or pilling to do. It's one of the greatest days in the life of any individual, when he can and does accept himself as he is, and starts going from there. The second condition we find in chapter 3. Chapter 5, it says, if you have decided you want what we have and are willing to go to any length to get it, then you're ready to take certain steps. Now this means to me that sobriety has to be number one if we be alcoholics. It has to be tops on our hit parade. And I am convinced clear through from top to bottom that the very minute that anything gets more important to an alcoholic than his sobriety, he is on thin ice. I don't think the time can ever come with us when anything gets between us and our program and our God, lest we be on thin ice. This is awful hard for some of us to come to see. And particularly is it hard for some of our mates to come to see. In my early days, my good wife was in the process of getting rid of me legally. She hadn't had me for quite a spell anyway. But she didn't want me around the house. I was cluttering up the place. And I had accepted the fact that she was gone and should be gone, and that I wasn't entitled to have her back. And so I never talked to her about this program. I never said anything to her about it for 6 months. Because I had decided the first night that I got to a meeting that I wanted what you had, and I became willing to go to any length to get it. But I had a great fear upon me, the fear that I didn't have enough left to get it. And for 6 months I was in a meeting every night with this great fear upon me, because I didn't bring a body or a mind to my first meeting. Many of you have heard me say it took me 3.5 years to get over falling on my face after my last drunk. And it took me over 6 months to put the serenity prayer, this beautiful little serenity prayer, together in English, not spiritually, in English. So I brought neither a mind or a body, and I was so burdened with this fear that I couldn't have it, that I didn't have enough left to get it. And so I never discussed anything about this program with my wife until 6 months had gone by, and I had awakened to the fact that I was sober, and had been from the very first meeting. And then I started talking with her about it. Well, unbeknownst to me, she had read my book, and she wanted to go with me. And I took her. And she's been going with me ever since. But after 3 or 4 months, I was asked to say a few words in my own group. And I got up and talked a little, and I said, now, if it was necessary tonight for me to go to Tibet to maintain what I have found here, I would go home, pack my grip, come through the living room, kiss my wife, and say, honey, it's too bad, but I've got to go. Well, we got home. Pretty soon I noticed that the house was shaking. And I look over and she's bawling her eyes out. And I said, "Why, honey, what's the matter?" And she says, "Oh, what you said." She says, for the first time in our lives, we have a little chance for some happiness, for a little joy and a little peace around this house. And you'd go to Tibet. She says, "Don't I mean anything to you? Don't the kids mean anything to you? Don't the home mean anything to you?" And I just let her cry, and it slowed down. And I says, "Honey, do I mean anything to you, drunk?" And she says, "No." "Do I mean anything to these kids, drunk?" And she says, "No." "Do I mean anything to me or to life, drunk?" "No." And I said, "Well, can't you see that this has to be number one?" And she couldn't. But you heard her say yesterday that if it were necessary for us to go through this 10 years of hell to find what we had found, that she was glad that it happened. And she's a non-alcoholic. And she would tell you, if you asked her, that anything that I feel that's necessary to maintain myself in this way, she okays, regardless of what it is. We must come to see that this is number one and must remain so. If you have decided you want what we have and are willing to go to any length to get it, then you're ready to take certain steps. And then it says, here are the steps we took. And this is one of the most significant programs in our book. I mean, one of the most significant lines in our book. Here are the steps we took. T-O-O-K, took. We're sober. Now, if you happen to be an alcoholic and if you want to get rid of that flick, took 'em. Took 'em. Because when you took 'em, something happens. And when you don't took 'em, nothing happens. Here are the steps we took. Now, it doesn't say here are the steps we heard read. Or here are the steps we read. Or here are the steps we discussed in last night's discussion meeting. Or here are the steps we interpreted. That interpreted just drives me nuts. You know what that first step meant to me 18 years and 7 months ago? We admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. Do you know what it means to me this morning, 18 years and 7 months later? We admitted that we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. That's all. I'd like to hear some bright boy or girl jump up and interpret that. Thank God I got here too late to interpret. Doesn't say interpreted. It says took. Neither does it say here are the steps we conned God into taking for us. God has everything to do with our program. He is the author of it and the father of our miracle. But this isn't one of the things. Here are the steps I take, myself, personally, applying to my very own life. And I haven't had to drink anymore. Now, this is the formula. This is the simplicity of our program, and this is the only thing that's wrong with our program. It is that simple. It is that simple. But you and I are not that simple. We look at this thing and we say, it can't be that simple. There's bound to be a tougher way than this, and I'm going to find it. We say if these black lines have got so much potency, these white lines have got something in them too. And we start reading between the lines. We can't get simple enough to see that 500,000 men and women are living a sober, normal, not normal, AA way of life. As the result of applying these steps to their very own lives, as honestly as they know how, one day at a time, and letting the chips fall where they may. When we get simple enough to do this, to abandon ourselves completely to this simple program, to let go absolutely, to do these simple things one day at a time to the best of our ability. And incidentally, that's enough. This isn't a program of great learning. Neither is it a program of great ability. It's a program of attitude and effort. Attitude and effort. The only thing you and I need to know that we didn't know when we got here was the nature of our problem. This is very good to know. Very good to know that I'm physically and mentally different than the non-alcoholic drinker. It's a good thing. And this we need to know. But that's the only thing we need to know that we didn't know when we got here. And the only ability we need is what we got, if we use it all. Because when we use it all, what we lack is supply. This is the miracle of AA. And so I'd love to talk about the 12 steps, and I'd love to talk about the 12 traditions this morning, but I'm not going to do it. These are the conditions boiled down. The recognition that we've lost the battle. The admission, personal admission, and acceptance of the fact that we have lost the battle of life. The recognition of the need for help from any place. From any place. If there be any atheists or agnostics in the room this morning, let this not bother you in the least. Just the recognition of the need for help from any place is enough to start with. And then enough honesty to see ourselves as we are, and enough honesty to do something about it. Namely, to practice these principles in all of our affairs one day at a time. And the rest will come. I've seen atheists come to this program that were so bitter they'd spit on the floor every time the word God was mentioned. And I've seen them remain to thank God from the soles of their feet. Just the recognition of the need for help. There's nothing in our book that says you need come here believing. Our book says we came to believe. And when we do these simple things one day at a time, we can't keep from coming to believe. Because we move out of hell into heaven. And there's nothing left to do but thank God. And this is our program of recovery. If you want these things, do these things. Now I want to start over. I said that I agreed with the doctor about the disease of alcoholism. But I think, and most of you think I know, that there's another part to the disease of alcoholism. Of course, it is physical and mental. But it is also spiritual. A basic spiritual unrest is the basic problem. Alcoholism is a living problem, and you and I have to have a living answer. If alcohol alone caused alcoholism, every excessive drinker would be an alcoholic. But many good Saturday night drunks are not alcoholics at all.